I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I've asked the county attorney to read some guidelines. This is a special meeting for one purpose, so take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Schleif asked that I address the board briefly this evening before the meeting gets underway to discuss some matters of both procedural and parliamentary concern as the meeting gets underway tonight. And this is a bit of a different kind of meeting than we typically have. This, of course, is a business meeting of the Washington County Board of Supervisors. And while we may refer to this meeting amongst ourselves in conversation as a special meeting, it really is not. A special meeting under the law means something completely different. Essentially, a special meeting by law is a meeting that is held at the written request, actually, of a majority of supervisors. Our board adjourns each meeting at the call of the chair. And what that means is the chair can call the board together at his pleasure, her pleasure, at any time it seems appropriate to do so. So it's really just a business meeting of the county board. Now, you notice tonight's meeting consists of two parts. If you look at the agenda, one part is to be held in open session and the other to be held in closed session, assuming the board votes to go into that closed session, of course. Both sessions, though, are related insofar as they are intended to give the board an opportunity to hear from the potential buyer of the Samaritan Health Center, that part in open session, and, of course, to discuss the potential sale, the particulars of the potential sale, in closed session. That being the case, what I would advise the board this evening is that questions in open session be limited to the subject matter of the presentation. Questions and discussions concerning the particulars of the offer and negotiations concerning or centering around the offer should be reserved for closed session. Negotiation essentially should not be held in open session. The purpose of going into closed session under Wisconsin statute section 19.85 sub 1 sub E, as you see on your agenda, allows the board to deliberate and discuss the potential sale and so as not to weaken the county's bargaining power, or in other words, to force you to show your hands in public, show your cards, if you will. As you also know, the only current board action governing the future of Samaritan is 2023 Resolution 7, which directs that the Samaritan be sold and directs that the county executive enter into negotiations to effectuate that directive. So that is, if you look at the agenda tonight, that is the subject matter that's before you, the potential sale of Samaritan. Any matters outside the potential sale may be, depending, out of order. So with that, I appreciate the chair giving me an opportunity to address all of you this evening and wish you luck in your deliberations tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Stern. So our first agenda item is discussion. And it looks like Josh is going to lead that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome back, everybody. Congratulations to those of you who are re-upping. Welcome back and starting a new term within a few weeks. As was the case several weeks ago, over a month ago now, when we got the news regarding the last situation, we were quick to come to you, inform you, get out in front, and make sure that you were as informed, residents and staff were as informed as possible. Similarly, we are in front of you with relative haste as we're here to announce and discuss a letter of intent for an offer purchasing Samaritan, working with our broker, who's with us today. Evan is with us today, as well as we have the principal owner and one of his partners with us today as well. That letter of intent originally came to us middle part of last week, March 26th, and with the Easter holiday and obviously Election Day being yesterday, today was the first reasonable time for us to get in front of you. During that time, we have done a number of things that I'd like to report to you. First off, in conversation with Matt and Lonnie, our broker, Evan, who is on Zoom with us today, as well as outside counsel from Foley and Lardner, as you may recall, we have determined that we are dealing with a qualified offer and a qualified buyer by our definitions in the past. That was the first step in order to even be able to get in front of you today. Also during that process, we have done a number of due diligence efforts that we want to report to you today as well. There has been preliminary background information that we have gotten from Evan and his team, as well as we've been proactive in doing some of our own. Simple things like Google searches, certainly, but more importantly, going a step farther and actually proactively, as we did with the previous potential buyer, physically going to locations that are currently owned. As I mentioned, the letter of intent we believe to be qualified and from a good buyer. With us today are Jacob and Ben is on the phone, and they'll come up in a few minutes. They have an offer for us to consider that we think is worthy of your consideration. They own 3 facilities in the state of Wisconsin and a multitude of facilities across the United States. We can go into those at some time. But what I'd like to talk to you about today as we open up this discussion is what we went and saw firsthand. We went Monday morning early to a facility in Racine and to a second facility in Middleton. Those have been purchased recently by Jacob and his team. We toured both facilities and had lengthy conversations with Jacob. Those conversations I thought were positive and worth bringing to you here. And Jacob and Ben went one step farther and offered to come here and have Q&A and discussion, including discussion about what their intentions are with the purchase of the license and the purchase of the facilities. During our tour, during our conversation, I will simply say, and I'll let those who were with me speak at more length, but I will simply say that I felt very comfortable coming before you today and having this much larger discussion before we go into talking about negotiating specific terms. I keep referencing a good buyer and a qualified offer because I think that is the most important thing for us to even have this discussion. When I say that, I'll remind you of the 3 key things that we have set as our interest. While money is certainly part of the letter of intent, it is not our number one driving factor. Caring for the residents, both today and in the future, is our primary. A close second is taking care of staff that is existing there and keeping them happy and working for the long term because they keep the residents happy. And then staying here in West Bend. Those things have been communicated. We've spoken now for hours with Jacob about what exactly that means to us, to this board, and to our community. And I'm confident that Evan has communicated that all throughout this process. With us on the tour was the exact same group of people that went across state lines over a year ago now. In this case, we added Matt Fernal was with us, Lonnie joined, Chairman Schleif, and Tony Toma. The group went, like I said, on Monday morning to both Racine and to Middleton. In the end, I believe both facilities were in great shape. Staff was very friendly and kind to us. At least 3 times I heard residents refer to Jacob by name, and not with curse words on either side. Pleasantries were exchanged. And as I said, we had very good discussions, and that was at both facilities. With that, I would turn it over to Matt or Lonnie, Mr. Chairman, at your pleasure, and Tony as well.
Okay. Good afternoon. I had the pleasure of going to Middleton Village Nursing and Rehab, as well as Lincoln Park Nursing and Rehab. And these are two of the three facilities that at times were in trouble. And Jacob and his group, their ability to turn facilities around, and you could see that. I observed one going into these facilities very clean. Going into these facilities, the residents were dressed, were clean, and happy. The employees were extremely happy, and speaking to Jacob, of course, as we would walk down the halls, but I was very, very impressed with the way it was organized and listening for the nurse call. That's something very, very important. And there are many times we're remiss at Samaritan in catching it quick enough. And I was observing only one call went a full 60 seconds before it was stopped and addressed. So I was extremely, extremely pleased with that. And our tour, we were looking at everything, and I would go, while the tour moved forward, I would kind of hang back and start looking and speaking to residents as well as some of the staff. They were extremely happy. I talked to a couple on the outside of the building. They were taking a break. They were very, very happy. So I was very pleased with what I saw, and it's something that would fit right into the Samaritan model, and we could learn from them. So I was very pleased and would highly recommend Jacob and his team.
Mr. Chairman.
I will agree with the same thing. We spent a long time talking with Jacob at the Racine facility, and he comes across as a very earnest young man. He was an administrator before he was an owner. He knows the business, and he's there. He's present very often. And I saw a kindred spirit thing between him and Matt. They both have lived this business, and how well they got along and clicked really impressed me in afterthought, so much so that I think he's trying to hire Matt, but for another day. But I think this is a good fit for us. Mr. Toma.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Visiting these two facilities, I found them to be very clean, and that's what I went in for, to see how they're clean, how the residents were taken care of, and I was really impressed. The staff, that I kind of thought to myself, well, maybe there's extra staff on. I don't know, but it was well staffed, and I was really impressed by Jake, and I hope his speech to us tonight will convince you on him taking care of our Samaritan. And I don't know if it's going to be mentioned tonight or not, but we had talked about keeping the Samaritan name, and Jake agreed to keep Samaritan as part of the name. So I was very impressed. Thank you.
As with all of these things, I think one of the important parts is the due diligence period. Obviously, we have a letter of intent, and that is it at this stage. Before executing that, we wanted to have this conversation with you, to have you have the experience that we had in a shorter version. Our day was, I think, almost 12 hours or 11 hours, but certainly get it in a nutshell and be able to ask your questions directly of Jacob and his partner Ben. In addition to that, and I think maybe before we get into that, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, I think it would be helpful to hear from our broker, Evan. Evan is the one, obviously, who identified Jacob and his team, who kind of brought them to the table, so to speak, and has some experience that he can share. So with your permission, Mr. Chairman, we can turn it over to Evan.
I'm fine with that.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, so, I work for Evan Senior Investments. We sell senior care facilities all across the country, representing independent owner operators as well as, county-run nursing homes like this one. We have, currently selling, 4 county-run nursing homes across the country. And the reason I bring this up is really just, there's concerns and objectives that come with the sale of a county-run facility, such as, the ones you've raised earlier, but, that are much different than the sale of, an independent run, independent owner run facility. Because, at the end of the day, it's really more of a partnership, between the new ownership group and the, county, and then, not as much, an outright sale. So, ultimately we, identified, EOM Healthcare as an ideal buyer. First step for us when, finding buyers is to, ultimately, put together a list of which buyers we believe would be willing to purchase the community in the first place. So, that entails, groups that are looking to expand their portfolio within the state of Wisconsin, as well as, buyers that, have the appetite and the desire to, step into a community, such as this one that's struggling from a census and cash flow perspective. From there, many groups we eliminate just for not being, a great fit in that, not groups that we feel you'd be comfortable handing the keys over to. You had mentioned earlier, Jacob and his team take a very hands-on approach. They are in the, Jacob's in the communities every week. And, knowing that Jacob and his partners, have the experience, in turning around troubled communities and, increasing that culture, between residents and staff. We quickly felt that, his approach to operating senior care facilities would align with that of Washington County. The first thing that really stood out to us, is obviously his hands-on approach. I think every time I've spoken to Jacob over the past year, he's been, in or out of one of his communities on his way to the next one. Always referencing administrators, referencing staff by name, which is really rare in our industry. We don't come across a lot of, owners that, are that involved in the day-to-day operations of the facility. From there, the, second thing that really stood out to us when contacting Jacob about this opportunity is really just the questions that he asked. Most buyers would immediately be, asking, how much money are they losing? What opportunities are there to decrease expenses? Jacob is really, and his team are really more focused on investing in the community to, ultimately make it a desirable destination for the residents of Washington County. And, with that, the profits will kind of take care of themselves, which I think, goes a long way in, how you want, your county to your county facility to be run going forward. So, in summary, that's really the reason we feel, EOM Healthcare is the ideal buyer and partner to continue operating, the community into the future.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Okay. With that, I'd like to, with your permission, take the opportunity to introduce Jacob and Ben. As I said, we've had hours of conversation with them, so I'll let him do all of the explaining himself about him and his partner's intentions with the purchase, including timelines and things of that nature. Once we're complete with his presentation, you're certainly welcome to ask any questions of he and Ben. And then we'd like to just close the open session portion by talking a little bit about timeline from our perspective. And then certainly go into closed session, we can dive into some of the finer points as well. If that's good with you, Mr. Chairman?
Sounds good.
Okay. Any other questions before we do that? All right. With that, Jacob.
Good evening. Does everyone hear me? Yes. Okay, amazing. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for having me. Good to see all of you again. I appreciate you coming out to the facility. A special welcome to the new members. I thought they would be choosing me, but I guess I wasn't voted in. Otherwise, a special welcome to those that are joining from the facility. I don't know how many of you have ever worked in a nursing home, be it as a CNA or as a nurse, a dietary, in any position. I did it quite a while ago. At this point, I'm in a little bit of a different position where my life is a little bit easier and simpler. But the level of devotion that it takes and the amount of sacrifice that every single person that works in a nursing home makes every single day, be it the social services director, I think you said the director of nursing is here. I don't know who's who. But if you'd all just join me in a quick round of applause for them. Because it was a common theme when COVID first started for everyone to call them heroes. And unfortunately, that kind of fell by the wayside. And our approach as a company is that that's still the case. And, I'm going to try to jump into and touch upon some of the key points, some of the things that I think are important to you guys as a county. Obviously, if there are any questions, there'll be time for that, and so don't hesitate to ask. I encourage questions. It'll help me learn more about myself as well. My understanding is that there are, I think, 4 most important things to the county, to the residents, to the community, ultimately to your constituents. And, pardon me if I conflate some things, but, the first and number one priority is that you want to make sure that your people are taken care of. And that's not just the residents that are in the building today. That's the residents that are going to be in there tomorrow and the next day. I think the second most important thing is the timeline of events. My understanding is that you had a little bit of a last-minute experience with the previous buyer, and they kind of just pulled out very quickly, and it was as a surprise to everyone. And you're looking to make this happen in the event that you're looking to make it happen as quickly as possible. That, my understanding, is the second to most. I think the third most is my long-term investment in the county, and you essentially are looking for some sort of assurance that we intend on keeping the beds here, not closing the facility down, moving it anywhere else. I think the fourth most important, which maybe is not for everyone here, I think is Matt is looking for this sale to happen before he turns 80. And so he's the only one clapping. So his birthday is March 7th.
Yes.
So I got a timer on my phone. I'm confident we can get it done in within 60 days or so, but certainly before March 7th. And so those are basically our guiding priorities here. And with that, I'm just going to jump into made myself some notes on my phone. I'm not answering text messages and emails. I just want to talk about myself a little bit. So I'm from New York. Today I live in Florida. Prior to living in Florida, I lived in Omaha, Nebraska. How I ended up from New York to Nebraska, I don't know. On Monday on the tour, somebody asked me what in the world I was doing there. I'm saying it in a little bit nicer way. I don't know. I'm not sure. I still have to think about it. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. New York is very fast-paced. Omaha is not fast-paced. And I kind of got this really deep sense of appreciation for the Midwest. I tell him about this story of my car salesman telling me something about his dog, and he kept saying, yeah, the roof is very good. And I had no idea what he was talking about. I was like, your dog is the roof sound? And he's like, the roof. I was like, can you spell that for me? And he's like, R-O-O-F. I was like, oh, the roof? We speak a little bit of a different dialect, but slowly I learned the language that is spoken here in the Midwest. I learned about Midwest nice, and I've really come to appreciate it. Prior to moving here, I was involved in a group of nursing homes in New Jersey. I was more involved in the back office, so not the ownership level, but kind of the, just overseeing the financials, making sure that cash flow is good, the billing side of things, back office, HR, payroll, etc. When I moved to Omaha, I got involved in the actual day-to-day. And so my first job in the nursing home, maybe you guys will appreciate this, was I actually started in medical records. It was not a good fit for me. Sat in the office all day long, scanning in documents. It was probably close to 10 years ago, and we were transitioning to PCC. And so you can imagine the work entailed with scanning thousands and thousands and thousands of documents. Quickly after I moved into the admissions role, I was in HR for a little bit, social services, activities. I did housekeeping. I didn't tell my wife that, though. I was involved in the kitchen. Whenever they had no dietary aids, they called upon me. I was going through my administrators in training. Eventually, I got my license. I worked as an administrator. And I primarily worked for two groups there. One was called Azria Health. I think at this point, they may have sold some of their facilities. When I was there, they had 3 facilities in the Midwest, 2 in Omaha, 1 in Olathe, Kansas. And I used to travel between the 3 of them and just try to help out in different ways. They kind of used me as their gopher, which was a really good learning experience for me. The second company I went with was Guardian Healthcare. One of the owners of Guardian Healthcare is actually a fellow named David Hoffman. David Hoffman may not mean anything to you. To me, he's a good friend today. He's also a partner of mine today. And how that came about is a different story, but I had left him and went to work for someone else prior to purchasing these 3 facilities here. And ultimately, I became partners with his best friend, and I mentioned, this guy David, and he's like, that's my best friend, and we ended up becoming partners together. So it's a small world, and that's kind of my experiences. I did mention that I live in Florida. I think I've spent more time in Wisconsin in the last 16 months than I have in Florida. Please don't tell the IRS. I think I may have to pay state income taxes here. I have to just be careful with that. But that's basically about me and my experiences. After that, I worked for a company that had facilities in Kentucky, Tennessee, and Florida, where I was responsible for overseeing all of those facilities. I can't tell you where they're holding today. It's been about 2 years, but at the time they were at fairly decent star ratings. One of those facilities was in Daytona Beach, Florida. And so in addition to getting to go to the Daytona 500 once a year, although the year I went it got rained out, it wasn't a county home, it wasn't a church-run facility, but it was a non-for-profit. And so that was a very good experience for me. It was the first time for me when I had taken over that facility, but it was very, very different. Similar to Samaritan House, it is also, a lot of things are done internally, and they don't outsource a lot of things, so their billing is in-house, although there's certain aspects of their HR that are more like at the equivalent of a county level. And so that was a humbling experience for me and a really good learning opportunity, being able to delve in and get an understanding of kind of how those things work in the nonprofit world prior to not having had that experience. I want to talk about EOM Healthcare Group and kind of what that means to me, and I'll tell you what EOM stands for. So EOM is an acronym. I feel like a lot of companies, particularly in the for-profit world, have these cliche names. You have specialty nursing, and you have premier nursing and rehab, and all sorts of names that mean a lot of good things. And to me, I wanted to do something that would kind of remind me every day to stay true to my mission. And EOM is actually an acronym. It stands for Everyone Matters. And I think where that focus really comes into light is, and I think you guys will appreciate that, is, everybody knows that the residents come first, and that's obvious, and no one will disagree with that. And you ask any single person that's never stepped foot in a nursing home a day in their life, what's the most important thing? Resident care, making sure the residents are taken care of. And I agree with you 1,000%. Unfortunately, though, what gets neglected along the way are the staff. And the staff get thrown by the wayside, and this is not just a COVID thing, this is well before as well. They just don't get the attention they need. And I don't think people quite understand that it's not a 9-to-5 job where you just go to work and you come back and you answer emails and you do your thing and you go home. You have people that are getting called 24 hours a day on the weekends, at nights, they're getting disturbed. Someone needs to be sent out to the hospital, they're calling the director of nursing. There's an issue with, between a resident and another resident. The administrator's getting called at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. It's a lifestyle. It's not a job. And so the focus here of the company, what we've tried to accomplish, and I think what we've successfully accomplished in many ways, although we got a ways to go, is very, very much employee focused. And I encourage you in your free time, you can go onto our corporate website. It's pretty simple, EOMHCG, which stands for Healthcare Group, so EOMHealthcareGroup.com. You can do either of those, the shortened or the longer version. And there's a tab on there that talks about employee initiatives. And the employee initiatives, there's an employee appreciation guide. And it's kind of like an employee handbook, but it doesn't go through the rules of what sort of footwear and the dress code and how late you can clock in and how early you can clock in. It goes through the different benefits that we have. And it doesn't discuss specifically our pay and what CNAs and nurses are making an hour. What it discusses is the increased levels of PTO that we're going to be giving to the staff and that we have given to the staff in every facility we've taken over. It discusses the 401k plans that we have, the health benefits that we have. It discusses fun events that we do every single week in the facility, whether it's buying food for the employees or taking the staff out bowling. There's constantly things that are happening because what we realized is that when the staff are happy, ultimately the residents are going to be happy. And so we focus all day long on the residents, and that's great. But what gets neglected, again, along the way are the staff, and ultimately the residents, their care is going to, become secondary to the needs of the staff because ultimately they just have too much going on. There's too much on their plate, and ultimately it's not fair to them. So that's kind of our vision. That's kind of our philosophy. It's worked. Yesterday I had the pleasure of meeting the 5 people that had joined me, and the second facility is probably our greatest success story. The second facility is Middleton Village Nursing and Rehab. It was previously known as the Villa at Middleton Village. It's in Middleton, Wisconsin, about 2 hours from here. It's a 97-bed facility with our capacity of about 82. And so it's, not exactly the same size, but, the census is a little more. It's not that much bigger than this facility. Things aren't that much different. When I took over the facility, there was about 95% agency. And they had nurses flying in from Texas, from California, from New York, and everywhere in between. And forget about how much money that was costing me. Even if they'd come for 2 months at a time, they knew the day they got there that 2 months later they're not going to be there anymore. And you can only imagine what level of commitment someone has when they know that this is temporary. And that's exactly what travel nursing is. In most cases, it's temporary. Even more so when you have nurses from other organizations that come in for just a shift at a time, and sometimes you'll get the same ones over and over day after day. But again, there isn't a real level of commitment, and it's very challenging for the facility to hold these people accountable. The documentation is lacking, which ultimately feeds into the ability to care for these people properly, and it really has an impact on the quality of care that's being provided. The facility was 95% agency. Today it's at 0% agency. It's been at 0% agency for close to a year today. We came in with a little bit of a different approach. We spend a lot of money on advertising to make sure that we're getting a lot of applicants, but we were extremely, extremely creative. I myself, I could show you my phone if you'd like, I get notified every single person that applies to the building, whether in the dietary department, a CNA, a nurse, whoever, I get a notification about it. Typically when they're nurses, which are harder to come by, I'm reaching out to them. If someone applies at 3 o'clock in the morning and I happen to be up, don't ask me why, I'm reaching out to them. If they're applying, then chances are they're a night shift nurse, so I don't feel like I'm waking them up. We reach out to people every day of the week at all hours of the day until we figure out a way to get them in the building at their convenience. We give them offer letters on the spot, and we hire them when we get them in. When I spoke to Matt a little bit, he explained to me a little bit about the process. It's not how we do things, and it's not how we would be doing things. And it's what partially, or a part of the puzzle that enabled us to really eliminate agency completely. The building, Middleton Village, used to be on the candidates list for special focus. So for those who are not familiar, every state or the CMS has a list of facilities that are in special focus. Those are, let's call them, the worst facilities in the state. And what happens is you got to do really bad for a really long time, and then you get put on that list. You don't want to be on that list. You get a lot of, your fines are increased, you get increased surveys. It's not a good thing. It's very stressful. Imagine all the stress they have today. It's 100 times worse. This facility was not on that list. It was on the list before. It was a candidate facility. It had years and years and years of terrible citations, immediate jeopardies, harm level citations. It was simply put, neglected. And ultimately the staff suffered as a result, and the residents ultimately suffered as a result. Today the facility is no longer on that list. We have not had any bad citations since we've taken over the building. And that is very much, in the beginning there was nothing we can do about it, so that was kind of luck when we first took it over. But after a period of time, was on our books, and where we were the ones that were providing the care, it was certainly to our credit. And I don't take the credit myself. It's definitely to the people at the facility level. But ultimately, as a company, we were successful together when we got rid of agency. We now have our own staff that are there consistently from the top to the bottom. In every department, we're fully staffed in that building, and they're able to provide stellar care to both our residents and our staff. People are happy when they're there in the facility. Again, some of the members here can discuss some of their experiences yesterday, maybe some of the particulars, if they've heard any staff say anything, maybe behind my back. I know Matt, I thought he told me, he's like, oh, just go ahead. He kind of like popped into someone's room and he was like, hey, how's it going? Tell me about Jacob. Is he normal? I don't know what they said. So far, he's only said nice things to me. Maybe in the closed session, that's what he's going to be discussing. I'm not sure. But we've had a lot of success there. In the other facilities, we've also had tremendous success. In the Lincoln Park facility they went to earlier in that day, just similar. It wasn't quite as heavily with agency use. It was probably about 50% agency. Within a couple of months, we were agency-free, and we remain at that level today. We've done very, very well. Our staff are happy. There's longevity there. We have a lot of just people that want to come back. We've had people that left the facility to go elsewhere, and they've reached out to us looking to return. And it's just been a really good success story, and we plan on continuing to grow and grow and grow. I'll tell you something that I did for the facilities, and I know that the star rating of this facility is a 3-star facility. 3-star is amazing in the state of Wisconsin. So you can, a lot of credit to Matt and his team. It is very hard to become a 3-star facility in Wisconsin, because if you're a 5, 4, 3, or 2-star, and you get one bad citation, you're right down to a 1. And it takes sometimes around 3 years to get back out of that. So to maintain that is extremely, extremely, extremely challenging. You should all be proud of the community that you have and those that work at the facility. It's something that I can only wish for, and it simply takes a long time until we get there. I've worked with plenty of 4-star and 5-star facilities, but when you take over challenging facilities, it just simply takes a long time to get there. But our intention is to apply some of these measures that have been successful, and to implement them, and to have continued success, and to continue on your legacy. So that's a little bit about our employee focus, our resident focus as well. Obviously, the agency I discussed, and the experiences, the successes that we've had. In terms of the goals for the facility here, I know that we spoke about yesterday briefly, was brought up about the name of the facility. I mean, just simply put, my philosophy is that everyone knows the name, and whether it's a great facility or not a great facility, the hospitals know exactly what the name is. So if you think you're going to change the name and suddenly everyone's going to think, oh, wow, it's a newly built facility from the ground and, it must be perfect, it's not the case. So we have every intention of keeping the name. We've done the same thing. I mentioned, Middleton Village Nursing and Rehab used to be the Villa at Middleton Village. Lincoln Park Nursing and Rehab used to be the Villa at Lincoln Park. So we're very much true to that mission. Again, the reputation is something we take seriously, the star rating. When we were meeting on Monday, we were discussing the amount of volunteers that your facility here has. And I believe Matt told me there's about 60 volunteers. And I was blown away. And then he tells me he used to have about a few hundred. And then I was blown away again. And we started discussing the philosophy of a county-run home, or in many cases, different non-for-profit facilities. And that's our mission. That's what we're looking to do. We are not the type of company that comes in and starts cutting expenses. We're not the type of company that comes in and starts saying goodbye to all the staff. We set standards. We try to set them above what they previously were, at a bare minimum to continue with the standards that were, and we try to maintain the practices that were in place. And in the case of a good home such as the one that you guys have, the one in this county, we have every intention of maintaining that, maintaining the people that are there, maintaining the residents that are there, and ensuring that we can continue to grow together. We very, very, very much appreciate the philosophy behind a county-run home. I absolutely love community-run facilities. When I was living in Omaha, Nebraska, there was a facility there. It's called the Rose Blumkin Home. I believe it's a 5-star facility today. I never worked there, but I used to volunteer there. Typically, people that work in nursing homes don't also volunteer in nursing homes because they kind of have enough of that. We're very much, my family, my wife actually takes my kids on Sundays to go, do visitation in a different nursing home where I live. But we're very much in line with I believe, the goals and the vision that you guys have as it relates to having a county-run facility where it's very community-oriented, family-oriented. It helps us, it helps keep us accountable. When you have someone that's neighbor is visiting, or someone that's cousin is visiting, or their kids that live nearby, and it's all their friends that work there and that live there, it keeps us in check. And they don't hesitate to tell the nurse that works on the night shift who they're friends with, because they live in the same community, that their aunt is in the facility, you better make sure to take care of them. We like that. We appreciate that. We very much want to do it, particularly in the state of Wisconsin as it relates to expenses. The state reimburses based on how much money you spend. And so it's not one of those states that people come in there and they typically, slash expenses. Typically people invest more and more money in our facilities. In the case of our facilities that we have today in Wisconsin, on day one we increased wages for all of the floor staff, CNAs, LPNs, RNs, and we've done it a few times since then as well. We like to be competitive, not just because we want to make sure that we're able to hire nurses. We want to make sure that our staff are happy working at the facility, and as many bowling outings as you take them on, at the end of the day, they got to get paid. And so that's something that's very important to us, and that's something that we take extremely seriously. In terms of the future of the county, I talked about the things that are important to you, with the exclusion of closing before Matt's 80th birthday on March 7th. By the way, he's inviting everyone to join him on his boat. I don't know if he's sent it out yet. I got it. But in terms of the future, we have every intention of keeping the beds in the county. Josh and I have spoken about that extensively. We have no intention of moving them elsewhere. So much so that the 3 facilities that operate here today, the capacity of at least 2 of them are less than our licensed bed count. In the case of Middleton, we're licensed for 97. I mentioned our capacity is 82. In the case of Lincoln Park and Racine, we're licensed for 122 beds, and our capacity is 101. And we have another facility that we're licensed for 198 beds, and we will probably never go above a census of 170. And so if that was the business that we were in, we would have done that already. That is certainly not our intention. So just something that's important for me to mention. And then something else that's important for me to mention is we like to be flexible, not just with our staff, but with our residents. I know it came up in conversation on Monday, and since then and prior to then, I believe that there's one other facility in the county, and you guys take additional people or additional types of situations than they accept typically, including protective placement, including Medicaid patients, including those maybe even that are Medicaid pending. That's exactly what we do in all of our other facilities. The first conversation that I had with my marketers at all the facilities we went to is we love Medicaid pending. We have no problem taking them. We want to care for them. And if we end up not getting approved, it's our loss. We'll have to deal with it. We have a good group of people that are able to help get people approved. And so that is something that we very much, have no problem doing, and something that we, again, like to be flexible with our staff, and not just with our staff, but with our residents as well. Again, just want to reiterate, we have every intention of keeping the beds in the county and keeping everyone that's in the building today to continue being in the building, both residents and staff. We are not the type that come in and do things very different. I think that's about it. I'm sure I may have missed things. Hopefully, if there are any questions, maybe we'll get to some other things that I neglected to discuss. But I do very much appreciate everyone's time today. I appreciate your consideration. It was a pleasure getting to know some of you, and hope to continue to work together for time to come.
Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that presentation. That was awesome.
Thanks.
We appreciate it. And I'm sure you probably heard from Josh and basically all parties involved, all this stuff. So it might be a little bit of a rehash, but I think it kind of needs to be said for the people in this room and for the people who might be listening at home. Samaritan Home has always been an extremely important part of our community. It goes back to the Poor Farm days of the early 1900s, where it took over as a place for taking care of indigent and poor folks and whatnot. Built in 1968, it's been in West Bend this whole time, obviously, and there's very strong community attachment to it. Many community parents and grandparents and stuff, that was their final home. So it's something that in the last 2 years, this board has had to take up, and I'm sure you already know the situation. It was very difficult, and a lot of people had a very difficult time coming to consensus on how it could be handled, how it should be handled, community groups, and all the rest of that. So when we talk about keeping it in West Bend, it is because, we all feel very passionate about Samaritan Home. This is our home, and though we had all these disagreements over the last year and a half on how we could take care of it, or we should dispel with it, or what we were going to do, the underlying thing for everybody in this room and in this community is that we all care about it so much. We have different ideas about how we're going to take care of it and what we're going to do with it, but it all comes from that same place. We are united in the fact that we care about these people because they're our parents, they're our family, and we want to make sure that they're going to a good, solid place. And they're under our protection now, and we're asking for a company to come in and take that protection, and it's something that we feel so strongly about. So I just wanted to kind of give you at least a sense, and the people in this room, that we all feel this sense of pride over this place, this sense of dedication to it, responsibility to the people that are there. And when we talk about the name and keeping it in the community, it's because we've all fought so hard for our beliefs. And it felt the need to just kind of restate that so you can kind of hear it from another board member. So thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Is it okay if I respond? Yes. I'll tell you something that's maybe wasn't the smartest thing that I did, but I think it was the right thing that I did. In March of 2020, I had a good family friend that reached out to me. It was actually back in Omaha, Nebraska. And this person's father-in-law had some sort of fall, some sort of incident, and they were looking to send them to a nursing home. And they called me, having some sort of experience in the nursing home world, asking what my thoughts were. And what I told them at the time was, I don't think you should send them. I said, if you could afford it, you're better off keeping your parent at home. And that's the truth, because there's nothing like the care that your family is going to give someone. And that's my philosophy. And I don't think they were going to send to my facility. They were going to send to the community one. I wasn't working there. But essentially at risk of financially harming my own industry, I advised them against putting their loved one in a nursing home. And I believe the same is true for me. And that's, one of my guiding principles is that these communities need to be communities. They need to be family-oriented, exactly the way it's being run today. And, I think when we had met on Monday, or maybe one of the phone calls, I was asked, what is it that's attractive about this, this deal for me? And, there were a few things, but I think the most important one is I love the idea of a county, a properly run county home, because so many facilities get sold because they're in regulatory distress. Not so many facilities get sold because they're in financial distress. And that's something that we specialize in, fixing homes and making sure they're profitable, not by way of cutting expenses, but by way of increasing census. And the fact that you have a facility that people love and care about, and the fact that you have a facility that cares and loves people that are there, is exactly what we're looking to accomplish in other facilities. And I told the group on Monday, I would love to implement lessons that I've learned over the last 2 weeks, getting to know some of you, as well as lessons that I hope to learn in this facility in some of my other facilities. I'd love to have 60 volunteers. I'd love to have 20 volunteers. The ability to have people come from the community, take out of their own time, out of their own day, to just come in there and give the residents a good time and make them feel, more normal again. That's exactly what I'd love to accomplish. So I appreciate your comments. I appreciate the sentiment, and I couldn't agree with you more.
Supervisor Conrath.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and thank you for being here. As was stated, Samaritan Home, we've prided ourselves in our high quality care, our high star ratings. And I've pulled up Medicare Care Compare for Lincoln Park and Middleton. And if you could please speak to interventions that you're doing to try and increase the overall ratings for those. So those are both, the overall ratings are 1 star. The health inspections, you have a 1 star, looked at the details. Staffing is a 2 star, and the quality measures are 4 stars for both of those.
Right. Okay. I appreciate that. That's a good question. And that is the truth. Both, so just, preference or both of those facilities were in regulatory distress prior to taking over. And so that was kind of, I knew that I'd be getting myself into that. Prior to that, I've worked with other facilities that, whether we took over at a 2 or 3 star or was lower and we got it higher, it just takes a really long time to get it there. Some of the measures that we've put in place in those homes are, essentially we've increased our staffing numbers. It also, again, it takes time until that shows, but there hasn't been a single time that I reached out. I get an email every single day with the previous day's staffing numbers. The only time I ever respond to those emails is when their staffing is too low. I have never asked them why you guys overstaffed. We have some people in those buildings that are 1-on-1, and those are certainly not the ideal patients or residents to have in a nursing home financially. And if it's for behavioral reasons, it's even more complicated. But, I have 3 regional nurses and I have 3 facilities. That's more regional nurses, ratio-wise than probably most facilities in the country. Most companies that get a regional nurse, you get that when you get 1 regional nurse when you have 5 buildings. Maybe you have 2 regional nurses when you have 6 or 7 buildings. I have 3 buildings and I have 3 regional nurses. In addition to that, I did mention that I was in Florida. I cannot even imagine, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of miles I have with Delta, because I'm basically in the state of Wisconsin nearly every single week, with the exception of a handful of weeks since about November of 2022. I've been in the buildings every single week, including today and yesterday. And, in addition to just, being there with the tour, I was there prior to their arrival in one of the buildings, and I left for a little bit, came back with them, then I went to a different building, and I stayed there after, and then I spent the entire day, yesterday hanging out in the buildings. And so those are kind of some of the different interventions I've done. A lot of the reasons for different citations are when you have a lack of consistency with staffing, or when you have a lot of agency staff. And so typically what will happen is you have that person that comes in for a day at a time, a week at a time. They don't know your building, they don't know your residents, they don't know your policies. They make a mistake, and in the nursing home world, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And you can have one person make one mistake, and then state comes in and just blows you up. And so these are the issues that these buildings have been dealing with for years. And again, periodically these things will still happen. And with having no agency staff, that's probably our biggest intervention. So in addition to my presence on a weekly basis, a very robust regional team and back office support, in addition to being agency free, those are probably the biggest interventions that we put in place. We also have a lot of risk mitigating measures that we have, including we have our weekly risk meetings. I myself get reported. I have a list of things that they're required to report to me in the event of any major incidents that happen in the facility, be it to a resident or staff member. If we have any major complaints, I get notified about it. I see every Google review. I see every Facebook review. I look at their grievances every week. I have a weekly call with the facilities to just go over the progress during the week. I try as hard as I can not to micromanage them, but I try to keep my finger on the pulse because that's the only way to be successful nowadays. Aside from in this situation, my desire to buy this building, and aside from my desire to have, a good relationship with the Department of Quality Assurance in Wisconsin, everything nowadays is public. Just like you pulled up that information, anybody can go on Facebook and look at a few comments that people wrote, or look at some Google reviews. It's all there. You can't hide anything nowadays. And so, any half decent operator takes that extremely seriously and puts in tremendous efforts to make sure that we mitigate those risks. I know you guys use advanced entry in the building. If anyone walks in, there's that little kiosk that you check in on. I've used that in the past. We used a different company today. When someone leaves the building, they're prompted to give a review. If they don't answer the review in person, they get a text message prompted to leave a review. Out of those 1 to 5, star ratings that they can give us, if it's anything less than a 4, they're getting a phone call within minutes from a concierge that we have in the building that's working there, so that we can work through those issues and figure out what it is. And so those are kind of some of the measures that we've put in place. We certainly, have a way to go. Like I said, it takes a few years. Those star ratings, it typically works off of a 3-year cycle. I have a friend with he said 2 years of a deficiency-free building. But 3 years ago, in the oldest cycle, before he took it over, he had a pretty, a doozy of a survey. And ultimately, he got quite a few points. And today's facility is a 1-star facility, and it's also on the candidates list. The day he has another survey, assuming it's a good one, he's going to get off that list and he's going to jump up to a 3-star overnight. So the system isn't perfect. We're certainly not perfect, but we understand it and we take it very seriously. And, any advice that people give us along the way, we try to implement those measures to try and fix it.
Thank you. Just a couple of details too within this regarding the staffing. RN hours per resident per day, it states it's 33 minutes. The national average is 39, and Wisconsin average is 57 minutes. The LPN is higher, though. It's kind of flip-flop. That's above Wisconsin national average. But I'm being an RN myself too, and served in nursing homes to get myself through college, and my mother recently needing some long-term care. I'm curious about that RN time. Just 30 minutes per resident for an RN a day at one of your sites here.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is at Lincoln Park.
I may discuss some things that you'll be more familiar with than maybe the others that aren't nurses in the room. We very much have a preference with RNs due to their ability to do proper assessments. Typically, RNs are also able to provide, intravenous therapy, and we'd love to hire them. There are not so many, unfortunately, in the state of Wisconsin, and we wish we can, magically create them. We'd solve a lot of our issues. So typically what we'll do is we'll hire the nurses that are qualified that apply. We spend probably about $10,000 a month per facility advertising mainly RN and LPN positions, and we try to encourage it as much as we can. In an effort to supplement the lack of RNs that exist and the lack of RNs that we have in the facilities, we also do IV certification for our LPNs to, kind of bring them up to speed, so they're not all the way there, but slowly getting there. And we do provide additional training and various resources to help them. We can't, again, take all of our LPNs and just say, all right, guys, stop working for a year or two, do some sort of online course, go back to school, become an RN. We wish we could. Our preference is certainly RNs. What we've done to help supplement that is we've added additional positions in every facility that are strictly RN positions. So again, this takes time to show, and it's, we're not nearly perfect, and we have plenty of room for improvement. But one of the things that we additionally added in all of our facilities are supervisors. And so, depending on the facility and the size, the largest one more, and the other one's less. Our largest facility, that's typically about 160, 170 census, we have 6 unit managers. We have a director of nursing. We have 2 assistant directors of nursing, and our goal is to have a PM, knock shift, and weekend supervisor. That's a lot. In our other facilities, they reached out to me. I was on the way here. How much money can I offer a PM supervisor? And there was an offer that was given today. We've had that in the past, and the person left, and we're trying to find someone else. You know how it goes. But in all of our facilities, we've come up with creative ways to try and supplement those efforts. We certainly don't aim to staff at those levels. I don't give them a budget of the differences that they should have between LPNs and RNs. I don't demand of them that they have more RN coverage, because it's not always practical for them and realistic to get those people, because there's only so many to go around. But if they, their entire budget, whatever it is, of nursing hours, if it was completely RNs versus LPNs, although there's plenty of LPNs that are extremely, extremely qualified and can probably run circles around RNs, I would have no problem with that. And it costs more money, but it just makes much more sense for the sake of care. What I didn't mention in that one facility that had those positions, we also have 3 MDS coordinators, 3 wound care nurses, and a staff development nurse, I think, and an infection preventionist. And so we do like to staff up in our facilities. And again, we're very motivated to do it, not just because we believe in the care, but also in the state of Wisconsin, you get reimbursed for the amount of money that you spend. So for the year that we're investing that, until we get reimbursed the following July, we're happy to make that investment and, ultimately to have much better care. So not perfect yet, working on it.
So you're essentially using the LPNs. To their full scope of practice to try and
where possible
make up.
To an extent. We try to be as creative as we can. Ultimately, we'd rather have LPNs than no nurses at all. And so, that's typically what we'll do. Absolutely. Good questions.
Supervisor Schwab?
Thank you for being here this evening, and thank you for your presentation. As you're talking about licensed capacity and actual capacity at your facilities, it looks like at all your facilities, your philosophy is to be about 15% below the licensed capacity. Can you help me understand what the philosophy is by doing that? And as a follow-up, what, if anything, might prompt you to raise the stated capacity of your facilities to the full licensed capacity?
Good question. So out of the 3 facilities that we have today, one of them is licensed for 198, and that is our capacity. We just can't quite get there. The other 2 are licensed for 97 and 122, and those are respectively capacities 82 and 101. It's less of a philosophy and more has to do with the room to have people. There were renovations done in the facilities a number of years ago. Those that toured the facilities can attest to it. I believe they're both beautiful facilities, as is the third, and we simply don't have room. A lot of the rooms were turned into private rooms, and ultimately it would be very challenging to flip them back. I would love to be at 100% capacity. At the end of the day, this is a business for me, and sometimes we just can't get there. But we've certainly seen some success. But I don't believe that in the facility that's capacity of 82. If I wanted to go up to 83, it means that somebody wouldn't have an office, and I'd have to attach a bathroom, and it just that's basically the reason for it. I hope that answers.
It does. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
Supervisor Bossert.
All right. I also want to thank you for being here. I think it is a big positive that you came in to address us all today. That speaks volumes to you. Hearing you speak, I can sense the values you hold, the commitment you hold. I think that's very important in this transition. We just had an election cycle that finished up yesterday. Samaritan, for our West Bend County Board Supervisors, was one of the biggest issues. There's a lot of people in our community that are very concerned about selling Samaritan. If we sell it to somebody who holds the values that you're espousing today, I think that's a positive overall for the situation. Yeah, that's what I have. Thank you. I'm sure we're going to hear more details in closed session. I look forward to getting those details, but thank you.
Is it okay if I respond? Okay, I appreciate your comments. Thank you. Certainly, it's not just something that I aspire to do, but hopefully those that have visited the facilities can attest to it in practice. It actually exists today. I know that you had mentioned to me when we were there yesterday, when there was someone leaving the building, they had made a comment, or 2 days ago, they made a comment about this being the best place they ever worked, and they appreciate all that's happening and all that. And you said to me, how much did you pay them to say that? And the truth is that the fellow's name is Lorenzo. I was under the impression that Lorenzo was there with his mom. Lorenzo was sitting behind the receptionist desk. He was wearing a cowboy hat and had a little pit bull with him with some food on the desk. And I had never met him in my life. I wasn't in the facilities last week. I was there the week before, but I'm not in all the facilities every day of the week. And he was there, and he says, all right, we got to get Miss So-and-so back through. I was like, he's calling his own mom Mrs. So-and-so? That's a little odd. It's like, okay, it's Middleton. You never know. And then he said, and I said, I wasn't quite sure if he was a family member or if he was someone that worked in the facility. And then eventually we, continued the conversation. I said, hi, my name is Jake. He was like, you're Jacob, the owner? I was like, all right, relax. Did I not pay you or something? Yeah. And then he said to me, he's like, this is the greatest, and he was working there for 2 weeks, so maybe we'll give him some more time. But he said this is the greatest facility he's ever worked in. He loves the changes that are being implemented, and he appreciates working there. He likes the philosophy. I ended up getting stuck with him for about 2 hours after you guys left. We had a really good conversation. He's a good guy, very positive energy. We like having those people in the facility. He said to me, he's like, I'm just the receptionist here. I said, don't ever say that again. You're not just the receptionist here. You're the front line of every single person that walks into the building. You're answering the phones. You're the one that makes sure that the operation is running smoothly. You know how many people call nursing homes and they can't get through? It's your job to make sure that they get through to the person timely. It's your job to make sure that they're redirected to the correct person, because the director of nursing does not want to have to deal with financial issues, and neither does the BOM want to have to deal with clinical issues. And so there's much more in that. So the philosophy is something that we certainly we do in practice. I appreciate your compliments. I'll also tell you that I'm humbled by the fact that you say that it's you appreciate me being here, and it shows a lot about my character. I'm here every week. I can come tomorrow if you'd like as well. I basically live in Wisconsin, and so it really wasn't a big deal for me. I would be surprised had you guys not invited me here to speak. Obviously, the experience that I've had so far, it certainly shows you guys care very much about this facility, and it's more importantly its future. And so I'd assumed that I'd be invited at some point. If not that, at least to Matt's birthday party. But either way, thank you.
Supervisor Schulteis.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for coming, and thank you for your comprehensive and candid conversation. I very much appreciate that. I'm sure we all do. Congratulations also on being agency-free in several of your
Thank you.
Locations. Question about your employees and their retention. Do you keep a statistical, maybe month over month or quarter by quarter retention rate? And if so, would you share that with us, what that is? I know the turnover can really be tough, sometimes especially in that setting. And the other question I have is related to employee satisfaction survey. Do you learn from your employees about what's making them happy? Thank you.
Yeah, very good questions, very important. So I don't have those statistics with me. I apologize. I'd be happy to share them with you if I can get them. Like I said, our biggest focus is our employees. Getting rid of agency and then having CNA turnover basically at 100% would, I'd rather have the agency that are at least lasting a few days. It's a work in progress. We've only been in the buildings for about a year now. And so, it took us a number of months to become agency free. And once you're agency free, it doesn't mean you have all perfect staff. Obviously, at that point, you begin to, weed out the, those that are not, producing as much as the others, and that don't necessarily align as much with your philosophy. And so we're still kind of going through those steps. And so we try to hold people to a standard, and usually they'll end up leaving on their own. We don't like saying goodbye to people. It's not a good position for anyone to be in. I'd rather them find a job before we tell them to find a job. So the rates are, they're probably fairly high. I don't think it's super high. It's definitely come down a lot. We've had a lot of, probably the most important is the longevity that we've had along a lot of our leaders in a lot of the buildings. We had a proactive meeting with DQA, the Department of Quality Assurance, so effectively CMS, in one of our facilities yesterday morning, just talking about partnering further, and we meet with them periodically. We met them a few months back at our Middleton facility, and one of the things that they complimented us is on our longevity. Unfortunately for me, there was one facility, the Lincoln Park facility, the day I took over, January 1st, 2023 was a Monday, so I think it was the 2nd. The administrator gave me notice that she's out, and I was like, really? I was like, come on, give me a week. She had previously had some friends that were working elsewhere, but since then we've gotten a really good administrator in there. I think you guys had you've met Kimberly at Lincoln Park the other day, and you've met the director of nursing and some of the other facilities. And our focus is really on the staff, but there has to be some sort of understanding of how that works. And so what we've really focused on is the leadership and making sure the leadership are happy. We try to be as flexible as we can. I almost demand of my regionals that they at least take one day a week and work from home. And I have no problem if some of the leaders in the building do that as well. Try to be very understanding. People have different financial needs and emotional needs. And, one of my directors of nursing in one of the facilities, she lives here. Some of her family live in Memphis. And, she reached out to me. I hate saying this because this is me tooting my own horn. She reached out to me a few weeks ago. I said to her, when's your daughter coming next? And she's like, well, she was supposed to come for spring break, but the tickets are too expensive. I booked her a flight that day. I can tell you how much it cost and what days she came. She was in the facility 2 weeks ago, her daughter. That's the type of company we are. I want people to be happy. I want people to be comfortable working there because I want them to last. I'll get to the surveys in a second, the satisfaction surveys. Every single person that I ever talk to about hiring, I tell them one thing. I ask them one thing. I say, do you know that this is a 25-year commitment? And you're giving me that look, and they gave me the same exact look. And they're like, I don't think so. Some of them, I plan on retiring in 3 years. Some of them I was like, yeah, haven't lasted a job more than 3 months, and everything in between. And then I say to them a follow-up, I say, and do you know whose responsibility it is to make sure that you last 25 years? And they're also not really sure what I'm getting at. And I say, me. I say, if you leave between today and 25 years from now, it's my fault. And there's something that I didn't do to get you to stay. Obviously, there are other circumstances. People move, things happen. But our focus has really been on doing whatever we can to be the best possible place. I can't tell you that we have the best wages in the world and the best health insurance in the world and the best PTO policies and the best of everything. I could say we have very good of all of those, and combined, we hope to be the best collectively. And we, do a little bit more typically for our leadership, outings, events, just et cetera. And we believe that when we retain them for longer periods of time, ultimately the staff who they work with daily, because they don't work with me every day, they get, they end up wanting to work in the facility for a longer period of time. So it's a work in progress. As for the satisfaction surveys, I don't have those, and I don't have statistics for those because I don't have those. What I do differently is as follows. We use a software called Apploy, A-P-P-L-O-I. Highly recommend it for anyone that's in nursing homes. And basically what it does is, instead of posting a job on Indeed, and separately on ZipRecruiter, and separately on the other 100 job boards that exist, we post it just on this one, and it automatically posts it on all the others. And when someone applies, it comes right through there. And we correspond with the applicants in that place. And not only do I have the ability to see it, but so does the director of nursing, the HR director, the administrator, the staffing coordinator, whoever's involved in the hiring process. And so I, every single day, go into there, and I look at the correspondence between people at the facility level, as well as some of the applicants. And if someone says, no, thank you, I've accepted another job, I ask them. I try to push. I try to ask questions. What is it about us that you decided either not to come in for an interview or that you decided to accept a job somewhere else? What can we do differently? When someone leaves, I reach out to them using this platform. And everyone in the building can see. It's not a secret. What is it, what didn't work out for you? Just today, I spoke to someone on the way here. Her name is Marilyn. We tried hiring her for a unit manager position, and she didn't show up. And I don't know why. And I want to know why. Because if I don't know why, I can't do anything different. Now, that's pretty typical. You've probably hired many people that just didn't make it to the interview, didn't make it to orientation, or didn't show up to their first shift. But I had a good conversation with her today. It turns out that, her mother passed away recently, and she's just going through a lot. And so I said, no problem. That's it's not a good excuse. It's a bad thing. I'm sorry to hear that. But we understand it. Here's my cell phone number. I'm the owner of the building. Here's my cell phone number. Called her from my cell phone. When you're ready to come back, you let me know. And we're going to bring her back to the facility. We think she was a great nurse. I mean, if we didn't think she was a great nurse, then I wouldn't necessarily be reaching out. But that's kind of what I do in terms of satisfaction surveys. So I have a very good feel for what's going on in the building. I see the movement back and forth. I'm constantly reaching out to people myself. I'm in touch with the HR directors every single day, with the staffing coordinators every single day. I want to know that they have, I want to make sure they have the support that they need. Ultimately, they need the staff. If they don't have the staff, they can't do their job. And so one of the ways to get there is by getting a better understanding from these people what works for them, what doesn't work for them. They mentioned, I forgot to mention it, but someone said something about when I was in the facility, a few people mentioned me by name. They all have my cell phone number. I don't like when they call me because they have to call the administrator ideally. Otherwise, they feel like I'm overstepping. But people, periodically will reach out to me. Oh, Jacob, in the hallway, can you help me with this? I have a problem with my paycheck. And usually it's, okay, no problem. It's, something that you signed up for. It's an elective benefit. You got to talk to HR. They're going to get you taken care of. But we've created an environment where people feel comfortable coming, directly to me when I'm in the facilities. And I believe that really helps. And so in terms of satisfaction surveys, it's something that we have on the list of things that we want to do. But, I don't have them yet, but we do have a very good feel for, what people's sentiment, is and are, and we, change our approach based on the feedback we get.
Thank you very much. Good
Absolutely.
for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Bailey.
Thank you. You mentioned that you own 3 facilities in Wisconsin,
Yep.
Racine, and you bought it or opened it up in January 2023.
Yep.
When did you buy and open up the Middleton, and what is the 3rd facility?
Sure. They were all at the same time. All of them were January 1st, 2023. The 3rd facility is Bradley Estates. It was formerly known as the Villa at Bradley Estates.
Which is?
That's in Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Sure. Is it okay if I ask if any of those working at the facility have any questions? Assuming that you all work at the facility? Nothing?
I'll ask a question.
Thank you.
Leave it to me, right, Josh? Do you run any assisted living facilities?
I have. I don't currently today. In Daytona Beach, Florida, there's a facility there. We actually, it was a 4-star facility. I don't know where it's holding today. I haven't worked there in about 2 years. We had an attached assisted living.
Do you have a plan that you can share for our assisted living?
A plan with regards to what?
If I could ask you to speak in the microphone, because we've got people online that
Yeah,
want to
so,
hear. Them
what's your
too.
name? Okay. She just wanted to know if there's a plan for the assisted living. So do you mean for the future of the assisted living? Just as an entity in existence?
Yes.
I mean, there are no plans other than to continue operating it and to make sure that it has the resources it needs to be successful. It's the same thing for us. I have a very good friend of mine that operates assisted livings in both Florida and Wisconsin. He much prefers Wisconsin. He's spoken very highly of assisted livings here, and we have every intention of continuing, whatever exists today and trying to, move up and do it better.
In regards to the building, I know that you probably have seen it.
Yep.
Do you have any ideas of what you would like to do with the building?
Good question. So just the question was, I don't know if everyone heard, with regards to the building in terms of what we plan on doing with it. I think the most important thing is for us to get in there and make sure that the business can be successful. And in order for a business to be successful, it's got to be attractive to people. And it's got to be something that people, want to go to. And if there's other facilities that are nicer, again, we have to be able to be, successfully financial. We have to be successful financially, and it's got to be attractive in order to do that. And so in terms of exact plans, I know that there was some sort of funding that was allocated towards doing different renovations. And I don't know exactly what was done and where that's holding, but we haven't brought a contract into the building, and we don't have any concrete plans of that nature. But the intention is to beautify it. I think those that visited the facilities on Monday that toured, those are very nice facilities. That's my new standard. And so I'd love to, again, take some of the good from your facility and apply it to the ones that I have today, and take some of the lessons that I've learned in the facilities that I have and apply it to yours.
I appreciate the questions. We don't normally let the public speak, but thanks for your input. And when we go to closed session, you can corner Jacob in the hallway. So, Supervisor Schwab.
Mr. Chairman. again, it's obvious from your presentation that you have a heart for the residents, you have a heart for the employees, and it looks like you're the magic behind all three facilities' success. If you take on another facility, is there going to be enough, Jacob, to go around to share that magic and to continue putting in as much time and effort as you have been with another facility? That's probably an unfair question, but by the same token, it's an important question because it based on what you're telling us, it seems like you're very involved, and that's great. But is there going to be enough of you to go around?
That's a really good question. It is a tough question. I think it's fair. I think it's an important one. It's probably the most important question you asked. I really hate talking about myself, though. One of the smartest people that I've ever worked with is a person by the name of Natalia. Natalia is my regional director of clinical operations. She lives here in Wisconsin. She's in the facilities minimum of 4 days a week, if not every day. She's a lot smarter than me. She's a lot more knowledgeable than me. She's a lot more experienced than me. She is there day in, day out, making decisions on the ground. I talk to her every day because, again, I'm not here the entire week, and I'm not here 100% of the weeks. There's certainly a degree of positivity or energy that I try to invigorate the buildings with, but I think we all know that if it was me doing it alone, not just because of hours in the day, I can't do it without the entire support of the team. And I have a very, very, very good team. And I try to hire the people that I think are the best. And if they're not quite there, we try to help them become the best. Natalia is way better than me. I was thinking about bringing her here. I don't know why I didn't. But she is a guru when it comes to regulations. When I mentioned we sat with the Department of Quality Assurance yesterday morning, and we were just going through, different complaints that they get about our facilities and, again, how we can improve in different ways. And they started about a complaint, and the person that was there forgot the citation, F585 or whatever the number is. And Talia was sitting there, she's like, oh, F582, F580 this, F800 and whatever. I don't know all the regulations by heart. She's actually a physician. She comes from Armenia. She moved here probably about 30 years ago. She went to medical school. I think she practiced for a little bit. And when she moved here, her license didn't transfer. And so she went back to nursing school. I always feel bad. My wife is actually in medical school. And, I can't imagine the investment and the time, and I don't know what medical school costs in Armenia. Over here, it's fairly expensive, I can tell you that. And, she's very knowledgeable, very, very knowledgeable. If I'd be gone, she'd hold it together, no question about it. She does hold it together when I'm not here. She is typically who I redirect people to. If people have questions about self-reports or anything related to policy, regulatory, compliance, clinical, please call Natalia. No, I'm not good at this. Natalia's the one you got to talk to. She doesn't just do clinically related things, she does operational related things as well. When I'm not there in person, I want to have a conversation with someone in person. I talk to Natalia about it, and she has that conversation in person. That's my first answer. And the short answer is that no. If I have 3 facilities today and then there'll be 4, do the math, I won't be able to spend enough time there. And I think that's essentially what you're getting to. And you're right to some extent. But I will also tell you that in addition to Natalia and the others that I have, and I have a very, very good team of people, there is one person that I mentioned on Monday. The next person that I plan on hiring is the position is called the Director of Heart. And I didn't come up with that term. I actually saw it in some video somewhere that I can send you after if you'd like. And basically the goal of the position is it's an HR function. It's related to the hiring process and the onboarding process, staff appreciation, retention. And the reason why it's called instead of a corporate human resources or something of that sort, and Director of Heart, is because similar to the name of the company, you got to remember it. It's got to be ingrained in you. And you have to have a reminder in your face every single day because there's a lot of things that are going to distract you. And so, am I going to be able to spend an equal amount of time in 4 facilities as I do 3? I mean, certainly not, although the 3 facilities are much more stable, and I don't quite spend the same exact amount of time today as I did a year ago, but at the end of the day, there's 4 instead of 3, so no. But I plan on having additional very good people that I'll be working with, not for me, but with me, that will be able to spend time there and help make sure the facility can continue to grow.
Thank you.
Sure.
Supervisor Gallitz, you had rang in. Change your mind?
So, Jacob, thank you for, again, speaking and sharing your thoughts. You described at least what I call loosely a rotation program, your experience that you described going through the industry to different positions, the departments, et cetera. It sounds like you might do some of that with your staff, right? You talk to your LPNs, maybe progress into an RN. I took a look at your website, which I suspect many of board members here have been doing as well. You clearly have an industry acumen and a business acumen. Otherwise, there's no way you could offer 10% 401k match. I mean, that's a commitment to your staff. So that means you have a true understanding of how the revenue is generated, how to maintain a residency, and ensuring that you have patients, family members on a regular basis that trust your facilities. Because you can't provide those benefits if you don't have an environment that people want to be at, but both patients as well as employees. So that's just an observation.
Can I respond to that? So I think you mentioned, I don't know if everyone heard, the 401k sponsored at 10%. Actually, I actually got the bill for how much that cost me over the years. There's not so many people. I mean, it was $27,000 for the 2023 just to have the plan in existence. There aren't so many people that participate in that. I wish more would. And I'll mention another program that you may have mentioned in there. We typically offer $5,000 a year of tuition assistance. And it's a pretty simple program. You take the class. I think you got to get, I don't know, B or B minus or something. You just got to pass the class. And it's got to be something related to nursing home. If you want to go to pilot school, we support you in your efforts. We're not going to support you financially because we don't have a need for pilots, not yet. The goal of those two programs specifically, and kind of our thought process here, is that we want to invest in people that are going to invest in themselves and invest in us. And if you're investing in going to school, $5,000 is not covering whatever it costs to get from LPN to RN or to go to LPN school when someone's a CNA. It covers some of it. But we want to show them that we care. And when you're investing in yourself and you're investing in your future, that's the type of person we want to work with. And the same idea with the 401k. If someone has the ability to financially and they're thinking like that, let me invest so that I have the ability to not have to work until I'm I want to be able to retire at some point, and I want to have some money that I can buy groceries with and live comfortably. So that's someone that's investing in themselves. And ultimately, that's the type of person we want to invest in. And so those are just, two reasons. Again, not so many people participate in it, so it doesn't end up being that much money in terms of how much we, contribute. I wish more people would, but it's, something that we wanted as a benefit so that people, if that's something that speaks to them, we want to have that benefit so that they can come to our facility. And I'll tell you that what you saw online, that employee appreciation guide, it's the same in all the facilities that I work with. And the intention would be to have that apply here as well. And so I don't know exactly what your employee handbook looks like in terms of if you guys have sick time or vacation time or it's just combined into PTO. The facilities I took over did it separately, sick and vacation time. And, sometimes people will come in and they'll just combine them and they'll kind of minimize things and whatever. We only increased it because I want people to take vacations. I force people to take vacations. If they're not healthy emotionally within themselves, they're not going to do me any good. So, stop working so hard, go out, get a vacation. And I don't want the complaint to be that I don't have any hours left. So we have sick time, whatever the numbers are. I may say it there, I don't even know. And we have vacation time as well, so that people have the ability to spend time with their families. I can't have them work in the facilities 365 days a year. They'll go crazy. All people that work in nursing homes are already crazy, but they'll go crazier. No offense.
Thank you for all your candid conversation. Do you believe your partner wishes to speak? I think he's on Zoom.
Ben, are you on Zoom?
I am here. Sorry. I am here. Honestly, it's a pleasure to meet you all. Jacob echoed every single one of my sentiments, plus. I think that you did a fantastic job. I think just for the sake of the county, I'll provide a little bit of background, things that Jacob wouldn't have said about himself. the nursing home business gets a bad rap. A lot of it is deservedly so because it's viewed as a business. I grew up in this business, so I really had no choice with regards to career choice. But the thing that I found interesting about the nursing home industry is there's really only two ways to look at it. My career was built by going to small rural communities and taking over the homes there, understanding that when you own a skilled nursing facility, you are serving the community. It is not a numbers game for us. It has never been a numbers game where we try to acquire, portfolios. Sorry, Evan, I know you're on this call. We've never tried to acquire large portfolios. We have always been regionally focused and there to serve the community. And in order to serve the community, you need to say and do all of the things that Jacob had mentioned, which is you are serving your staff and you're serving your residents. And the only way to do that is to understand what the community requires. And the communities across the United States require very different things. And what is important to residents in West Bend may be very different than what's important to residents in El Paso, Texas, where we own facilities. And you need to understand the communities. And because of that, we, as EOM, which is one of the operations companies that I have, which has become my pride and joy, we are focused only regionally, which means that where you see today national, nursing home companies, I believe you guys may have dealt with that recently, and you're dealing with corporations. We pride ourselves on not being a corporation. We are there to service the community, which means we need to understand the community. In order to do that, we need to grow in a very calculated way that does not water down what our mission is. And our mission is everyone matters. So it is very not. It will say it's very not difficult for a nursing home company to grow when the business is what matters to them. But to us, it has always been about caring for residents. And the opinion that we have, Jacob, myself, is that when you care for the residents and you care for your staff, more often than not, the business falls into place. And we're in this for the long haul. I've been in this business for 30 years. Jacob has rolled up his sleeves and gotten to know residents in Omaha, Nebraska, and today he's there. So the only thing I want to add is that EOM is a Wisconsin operations company, and we're there to service the residents of Wisconsin, and we are there not to service all the residents of Wisconsin. We are going to be very careful about our growth, and I think that if you look up nursing home companies, it is very rare that a nursing home company starts and 16 months later hasn't added a single facility. And that is because of how core focused we are on our mission. It is not a numbers game for us. We are there to service the community and understanding that if we do this transaction, we are not our only partners. We are partners with the residents. We are partners with our staff. And above all, we're partners with the community. And we're just besides ourselves with the opportunity. So I know that the hour's late, and I really think that Jacob hit a lot. I don't need to add a lot more than that. We've done these transactions before. We understand that there are different things that make certain communities tick. We've taken over nonprofits. We've taken over facilities from, churches. And, we did a deal in Texas with the Nazareth Church, the Church of Nazareth, and there were things that were very important to them. The name Nazareth was very important to them. Bedside visits were very important to them from clergy. And these are things that if they're important to the community, they're important to us. So my only commitment to the board is that we are going to honor our commitments. We are not fly-by-night. We are partners for the long term. And even though we don't understand, what makes the county tick, if you will, we are very much looking forward to getting ourselves educated on that. And that's why these meetings are so important. So I'm just beside myself at how quickly the county moved in all of this, and how, it's been, 10 days, since we first, were approached, and here we are. And I think that is something that you guys should pat yourselves on the back about, because we all know how, the public sector gets a rap for certain things, and yet we're all here, and this has moved super quick. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think that there's not much for me to add other than I'm really proud of this entire meeting. I think this is what the nursing home business needs.
Thank you. Before we go to closed session, let's take a short break. Before we go to closed session, Josh wanted to complete the circle with the timeline.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Matt can probably speak to this better than I can, but you'll recall from previous processes that there's a regulatory timeline that's involved in addition to any kind of timelines for closing and things like that. However, I can tell you from the conversation on Monday that we were talking about timelines revolving around the middle part of summer to the latter part of summer, so July 1st, August 1st. We can go into some of the specifics for the whys and the hows and things like that, but I think you heard it best from Jacob and Ben. They're anxious to get moving. When I asked in our visit on Monday, what kind of timeline are you thinking to be able to kind of get in and work with Matt and things like that? And he said, well, it's about 2:30 now. They're very, as you can tell from their presentation and commentary, they're very anxious to be a partner, not just a buyer. And they want to execute that as soon as possible. We'll share with you some of our, and really Matt's expertise and reasoning for timing. But I'm very much a believer, and I've shared this with Matt, that we need to have as smooth a transition and a handoff as we possibly can. Where exactly that handoff happens it is important and needs to be thoughtful. But I would anticipate, if depending on the outcome of this meeting and depending on regulatory processes, July 1st, August 1st, somewhere in that range, I think, yes. Fair. We could be talking about the initial passing of a baton. So I think anything further that we should touch on in that regard, Matt?
No.
Okay.
No, I think.
Very good. Not yet. I said I would talk about timeline before. Evan, is there anything from your vantage point as a broker that, in terms of timeline?
No, that not just that they would be willing to start due diligence at execution of the LOI. Normally groups won't actually begin their due diligence until the definitive agreements are signed, but just to your point on how eager they are to get in there, they are willing to start due diligence and start spending money once we have a signed LOI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did Matt wish to speak, or are we ready to go to closed session?
We're ready to go. Yeah.
Ready. We're ready.
All right. I'd entertain a motion to go to closed session. Supervisor Kelling, Supervisor Berg. We'll do roll call, starting with Supervisor Bailey.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Thank you. We'll go to closed session. Okay, we're back in open session. I've been given a sample motion, so it reads as follows. Motion to approve the transaction of real estate, including the buildings and land, to EOM Healthcare LLC, contingent on successful negotiations between County Executive Showman and EOM Healthcare LLC of a purchase agreement, and further direct that upon completion of the negotiations, the county board chair and county clerk shall execute any documents necessary to effectuate the transfer of the property. Supervisor Schulteis and Supervisor Schwab. You wanted to make the other motion?
I want to comment on this.
Discuss this one first.
Okay. I know.
Okay, so I am going to vote yes for this motion. The reason why, quite simply, this makes sure our residents can stay in the current home they have. Our staff will be able to stay in the current building that they work in. This organization looks like they're ready to make a major investment in the current building. I think this is going to be a win for the community. I hope I'm not wrong on that, but I know we don't have the votes to stop a sale and try to keep this in operation ourselves. The votes aren't there. So I'm going to vote yes for this with the hopes that this works out like we all hope it will. Thank you.
Hear, hear. Supervisor Bailey.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to vote yes on this too because my constituents want us to save the Samaritan, and this is saving the Samaritan. With this deal, we don't have to stay in the business to save the Samaritan. Thank you.
Supervisor Mary. Supervisor Mary, did you have your hand up? No. Okay.
I don't think he did.
Supervisor Vespalik.
Just a clarification question was because Chris had asked about Supervisor Bossert asked about reporting back to the board in a certain amount of time. Was that in there? I don't know if I missed that.
I believe Supervisor Bossert intends
Okay.
to make a secondary
Okay.
motion to that effect. Supervisor Krieger Gundrum. Oh, wait a minute. Now I got a back.
I'm not trying to be contrary, but originally I decided to vote against a sale because my concern was that we take care of the Title 19 people. And I understand that this means it takes all the risk away from us and there's risk in the future. But I'm going to be a no on this because I still believe that there's no guarantee, unless there is, that I missed that, that the Title 19 people, they're going to operate to make a profit. And that might mean that they do exactly what we said we didn't want them to do, move people out of the county, or cause people to seek nursing home facility outside of the county.
Anyone else wish to speak? We will vote electronically. We'll vote on this electronically. It requires a simple majority. Did we have a vote from Supervisor Mary?
Yes.
Is that fifth?
16 to 2.
It passes 16-2. You had a separate motion? I got to turn off the computer and.
Sorry, I was just going to show. I don't know if you wanted to see.
Oh, did you want to see the vote? It's there. Yeah, I'm still trying to get my screen back.
Did you fix it? Do you need just did the check?
There. Go ahead.
Okay, so Resolution 7 was originally drafted with the trilogy model in mind and a set of dates for that. Since those dates have now effectively gone past, I'd like to make a motion that we ask the county, well, not ask, but require the county executive to report back to executive committee on a monthly basis on the progress of the sale and to report back to the full board in August.
Oh, that one?
Could I just ask a
We need a second first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do we have a second? Supervisor Vespalic, thank you.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Can we start that reporting in the month of May?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
If there's something to report, we'll come in April, but
But with the transition, I get that. So, yeah, we can start it in May.
Okay.
Thank you.
You have that? Any further discussion? There being none, we'll vote electronically.
Carol, yes? Okay. Unanimous.
It passes unanimously. Our next meeting, as you know, is Tuesday, April 16th, 2024 at 7:30 a.m.